Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode. I'm going to continue on with the wiring in this one. It's been a bit crazy lately. We've been juggling the weather, trying to sort out the hay for the farm side of things. Finally got our oats and barley in dry, so that was good. All our lucerne was a bit of a write-off this year, so not to worry. We still had a bit left over from the year before. So yeah, basically it's been crazy, but I've got another channel too, if you guys didn't know. It's Opal Quest, so it's coming up to Christmas here, so I've been flat out cutting jewellery and cutting opal I should say, and making jewellery and selling that worldwide, so that's sort of taken up a lot of my time as well, so hopefully we'll get back into this boat now. I've finally officially caught up, unless I get some more orders coming in, so let's crack on with it. Yeah, so what we're going to do is basically I want to, I've already, like I said in the previous episode, I think, we got this mounted as far as we got. It's been sitting here for a few days, or a week almost. What I want to do is just run this cable up through this gunnel here. Drilled a hole in the seat there, which will go through the board on top of the seat as well. And I'll just put a bit of this plastic armour type stuff around that while we're at it. And then I can run the cable from the isolation switch. I've got that little cable going across that way, which will also go to the switch, so I can do all that now. And I've also got our courtesy light wired in here somewhere, wherever it is. There's a cable there somewhere, I can't see it my end, but so there's a little courtesy light there, so that cable also ties into that loom, and then that can go right across and head off to the control panel. So this sort of section's kind of done. So anyway, we shall put some armour around this cable here. So this is just thick enough to go around this heavy cable, I hope. If that's the right size, yeah, just fits. So all this stuff is just conduit basically, it's just got a split in it, so this helps, it's more friction resistant, so if you get a bit of vibration it just stops it rubbing like you're cabling on the side of the hull or something like that. This is double insulated anyway, so I mean that's pretty tough, so take a bit of a hiding, but we'll just put this on as well, make it even tougher. So we'll just get that, slide that right up to the end where it needs to go, and I'll thread this through in a minute. Also, if you've got multiple cables, like obviously thinner than this, in multiple runs, if you can put it in a bit of conduit, it does look a lot better as well.
Through the fields of our paths, feelings part our ways, keeping us close but estranged now. Dreams holding us closer, meadows of our youth, 107 days, but recalling it backwards. Our dreams holding us closer. So clear. Ooh, we can see so clear. Blue, and you are shades of gray. Living day to day, even when we're free, it's true, the difference is the same, the colors always.
It's going to sit like that. I'll just knock out, or take out I should say, the bottom plate so the cables can come in and then out. And if any water does get in there, which shouldn't, it'll just run out the bottom. So these have just got nuts on there with a spring washer. This one here goes to our isolator as well. So this end here goes to our battery. So this is our main feed coming into the switch. So what I need to do is put that on the common connector on this battery terminal. Like so. So that's our battery coming straight in. Nice and tight. The other end of this cable, as you know, goes to the big ends and plug up the front, and that's going to be our electric motor. So this goes to B1. Beauty of these switches is so you can tap off the back of them at any time, run extra circuits if you need them. Nice and tight. And then the other circuit we've got here is this one here, which is going to allow power coming in. When I select B2, this will run power to our control panel and charging, all sorts of things like that. Pop that on there, make sure it doesn't short out with the other one. Okay, so we've got to get that mounted in on there now. Right, so while we're waiting for some screws for that isolation switch, the ones that came with it weren't quite long enough to flush mount it. I thought I'd just quickly get this, what do you call it, fire extinguisher box, and we'll mount some screws in that. I've already worked out where it's got to go, so it sits in there like that. And was marked where the holes need to go. So I'll quickly drill those. So I've got a little bit of reinforcing on the back of this unit to take a bit of the weight of the fire extinguisher. Hopefully that'll fit. So what I've done is I've grabbed some, cut a few little bits of stainless steel as washers, so I'll put them on the back, which will give it a bigger surface area to take the weight of a fire extinguisher if it's bouncing around in a boat a bit. So I'll get that mounted in there. So all I've got is these screws like that, the countersunk, because the front of this unit's quite large. Like the front of the fire extinguisher part's acting like a big washer anyway, so that can just go straight in there like that. And then the plan is put one of these on the back here, lock nut on that. So it just spreads out the load a bit more across the back. So we'll do that up nice and tight. And then our fire extinguisher should hopefully fit in there. Bend that out a little bit. A bit like that. So that should hold in there fairly well. That movement there is actually the bracket moving. There you go, we'll get that mounted as well. Right, so I've just mounted our isolation switch. I had to wait to get a couple of longer bolts. Might be able to see them through there, they're a little bit long at the moment, but anyway. So we've got two, so we've got one and two as a selector and off. So then in here we've got our cables run. I've got a bit of protection on the ends of those, and this is going to hide behind a glove box. Sorry, a fire extinguisher I mean. So we'll be able to mount that now, and then we'll be able to connect it down to this end here. Right, so we've got our fire extinguisher here, and that simply screws into where we mounted it earlier. And the cabling sits behind it, so it's well protected behind there. So I'll get these started, and then we'll just tighten them up a bit. All pre-drilled, pre-tapped, makes life a bit easier. Don't want to overdo it, it's only plastic, and it's quite light material behind here as well. So that's our fire extinguisher mount. It'll be nice and tucked away under there. So I've swapped a couple of things around with these breakers. I've put the heavier one down the bottom, and I've swapped the battery sides around as well, just to make it easier with the cabling. So the goldy coppery looking one is where you connect the supply to with these circuit breakers. So the input and the output's on the other side. So this is our main feed. Battery leads coming in here, like from the battery. So I need to put the battery on this side. And I'm twisting around like that. And then this one heads off to the load. So that's got to go like that on this particular case. This will be nice and easy to get to if something goes wrong. So we've got our input on this side, output going to our switch on the other side. This feed here is the one coming from our switch, which needs to go back to the control panel. So that means the input will be on this side, which is a feed. So that, tuck that around there a bit. That one can go like that. And the output of that one, find it. So this wire here is our earth, which goes to the battery. Same as grab our other feed wire here. It's alright. So this is our. So now we've got our main feed to the switch. We've got a big earth which goes to the battery. Positive, which goes to the positive of the battery, which goes through this isolator switch. We've got our negative here, which also goes to the battery, and this one here is a feed back to the control panel, which I'll take off the other side of the output of this switch. So it'll go there, clear as mud. So what I'll do is put a bit of tape around these. They'll be fully protected underneath there anyway, out of the road. And now we can start wiring up some more circuits. This little this wire here is from the courtesy light. So the reason I wanted to do that all at once now is I can get all this buttoned up, and I can run this cable back to the control panel with this wire here as well in the same conduit, so it's all nice and tidy. Alright, so what I've done is I've tidied a few wires up here. We've got our main cables going to the battery, a big positive one, a couple of earth going to our circuit breakers there, which then run to the isolation switch, which you've seen, that goes to the Anderson plug. When I put it onto 1, 1 and 2 is connected them both together, and then 2 runs back to the control panel. So back here I'm tidying up some cabling. This is going to run to the control panel from the isolation switch. Little light wire is the courtesy lights we just put in. They need to be in the same conduit. When that comes to here, we'll take it up to the T-piece under the gunnel, and then we'll have our navigation lights will be running the other way as well, but this cable will end up all the way back here to the control panel. So all we're doing here is just putting the wiring into the insulation. Double insulated anyway, this cabling. All this does is just give it a little bit extra protection, and it's a matter of opening it up a bit and pushing wires in there. And I've still got another couple of cables I've got to go back in this, coming from the control panel, navigation lights and a spotlight, which is only this lighter cable, so I'm hoping to get another 2 of those jammed in here, which I think they'll fit in there okay. So before I run any cables any further, I'm going to wire up this navigational light. What I can do is just join these in line like so, and I can thread this cable through. This is the port side light, the red one. So I can run this one through the hole we've made in the boat, and then run this across to the green one, which is on the other side. And when I get to the green one, I'm actually going to wire in the main feed from the control panel, as well as this feed coming from the other side light, so we can keep it all nice and neat and keep a bit of moisture out. More we can, the better. So anyway, so just need to join a cable onto this. So again, we'll just trim off the outer insulation. I've actually found a bit of slightly thinner wires in my shed there, just had a bit of an offcut here. So just make it easier threading through, and there's literally all this cable's doing is joining the port and starboard nav lights together, so there's practically hardly any current drain on these at all. So again, we'll stagger the joining of these. So cut the red one, which means we've got to cut the black one. And then the length should be pretty close. While that's happening, I'll just quickly fire up this. If you've never seen one of these are a portasol, little gas soldering iron. I had one of these when I started my apprenticeship, and it went for about 30 years, and finally packed it in not long ago. So I bought another one. I think they're made in, I don't remember now, I want to say Sweden or France or something like that. Ireland, close enough. Some miles off. You're an idiot, you don't know what you're talking about. I knew it wasn't made in Australia, put it that way. Alright, so they heat up quite quick. Usually just tin them a bit with some fresh solder when they've been sitting around for a while. So again, to solder, just heat up the side, heat the wiring up and let the solder flow into the wire. That way you get a nice flow of solder. Should be nice and shiny. So while that's easy to get at, I'll just put a bit of tape around here. You can put heat shrink on these. This tape's actually very good quality and it seals up pretty good. I'll probably put a piece of heat shrink over the whole lot of it later. Right, so there's one done. Join the other two together. There we go, turn him off. And because we can't get the roll of tape in between the two, we'll just pull the bit off. This tape's quite good. It's pretty flexible, and it stays sticky even if you put your fingerprints all over it. And I'll run a bit of heat shrink over this in a minute. Don't want to go too heavy on the tape and insulation because I've still got to get all this through the holes we drilled to mount this. So they're joined like that, and they're staggered in the joins, so like I said, they're not directly in between each other, so if something rubs through, you've still got a bit of a chance for it to not do any damage. A bit of heat shrink tubing. Being a port side, we'll stick with red. One end of this cable, I've already had something joined on there before, so we don't need a huge amount. Actually, it won't hurt to whack all that on there. So we'll thread that through. And find where the joins were. And the other thing with these gas soldering irons, which are quite handy if you haven't got your map gas or anything, because a bit of heat comes out of the side there, you can actually heat them up and melt heat shrink. Right, so a little bit slower, but it will melt. If you get underneath the burner there, it's there's a bit of heat coming off there. You can see it is shrinking, but we haven't got all day, so I'm going to get my other gas. Bit of matte gas, done the job. And there we have it, that's one done. We can now thread that through into the boat. So here we have a spot where we're going to mount our navigation lights we showed earlier. Put a rubber grommet in that one. We'll just get another grommet like this. This hole is going to be where the nav light comes down and through. That one's going to be where the spotlight comes up to. I'm going to put quick connects in the spotlight, so if I smash it off or something, it'll be easy to change over. Just snap another quick connect on instead of trying to solder, like joining cables and things. Makes it a bit trickier. So a little rubber grommet in there. Really it's just to stop things rubbing, just protects the cabling. So then we get the other end of this. Make sure you've threaded all your gaskets and everything on. And it's just a matter of threading the cable through. We won't mount these properly just yet. This is why we need to go a bit easy when we're putting insulation and tape on a join, because you've got to thread all this through. So there's our light, that'll sit in there later. Still got to pull it all apart and mount it, so we won't get too excited just yet. And then this cable's going to go down through there. And that'll fit like that. So that's fairly nice and neat once this is all buttoned up properly. And I will put Sikaflex on these as well, which is just a marine glue, like a silicone, and we'll basically squirt a heap in there, and that'll waterproof that pretty well. There's nothing worse than getting water in them and they corrode, even though they're supposed to be sealed. But anyway, so what we need to do now, the other end of this cable, which is under here obviously, I'm going to run that all the way underneath, cable tied under the front of the boat, and we'll make it pop up over to the starboard side light, where we're going to join the feed from the control panel switch to that cable as well. So we've just wired up a plug here, like soldered on a quick connect waterproof connector for our spotlight, which is going to come out there. And then when we mount the spotlight, I'll have the other half of this plug to that. So if we do destroy one on a branch or something falls off, we can just quickly rebuild a new one and plug it straight in without having to cut wires and unsolder things and whatever. So anyway, we shall stick this little grommet back into the hole where we're running our work light spotlight cable. So we'll just pop that in there without trying to stab a hole in it. You can put grease on these to help them go in a bit if they're really super tight, but that's not too bad. So make sure it's seated in there properly. Just a matter of feeding that through. And again, I'll put Sikaflex on all these for sure. Just helps a little bit with some extra corrosion. So the reason I'm running this right now at the moment is because I want to run this spotlight cable with the navigation light cable over to the other side of the boat under the front here. So I'll put a bit of protection conduit on that as well. So I thought I'll just run this while we're at it to kill two birds with one stone basically. There's a cable there ready to go when we plug our light into it. So I've pre-measured the length of this cable as well. I got under there and run this cable just roughly all the way back to the control panel. So we can have a switch from the control panel, light this up straight away. So right, I'll get under there and put some conduit on to the other side, and then we'll wire up that other starboard navigation light. All right, so we have these two cables here coming through. I've got the spotlight one there, navigation one there. Underneath here, I've put in a very small conduit. And what we'll do now is I'll run that underneath all the way over to the other side, and then I'll have to join it on the other side. Alright, so we've got to put the starboard light on now. It's just the same as before. A couple of grommets in where we need cabling to go. Make sure we've got our outside waterproofing on, gasket, and it's a matter of just running the wire through like that and through there. Again, I'll drown that in Sikaflex later to make sure it's really well sealed. And we'll be able to button all that up later. Right, so under here is where the nav light's coming from. And I've got a cable running all the way around the front to the port side light and also to the spotlight. And now what I need to do is these two loose ends there, I need to splice those in to that cable there and then run a conduit all the way around the gunnel and hide it all. Ooh, awesome fun. This is where you get to wire hanging upside down underneath everything, and gas soldering iron, and try not to drop solder on your head. So all I'm doing now is running some cables. I'm up underneath the front of the boat here. Now I'm just trying to handle a few things. Use the camera skills here for a minute. So at the end of the day, I've got to get this cable through here properly. These two ends have got to come through here and join all these together. But they've got to be on the other side of this. Okay, so I've soldered the navigation lights into that loom. And all we've got to do now is tape all this up, tidy it up, and then we can continue running this conduit under the gunnel. So going right up under the front. Right, a bit awkward, but I've tidied this up the best we can. And this is the underneath part. If for some reason, we're going to seal this up with Sikaflex, but if water does come down this cable, always put a little bit of a loop at the bottom end so water will drip away from the join, which is right up the back here. So anyway, we'll just keep putting this conduit through. So we've got our cable coming to the nav lights and the spotlight up in here. Just trying to feed it through here to the control panel at the moment. So that's the general idea. We're just running cable there, splits off down here under the seat, through here, and back there, and then comes out into the control panel here. Just keeps it all nice and neat. So we've actually pretty much finished up the front now, so I can probably start screwing in some of this floor again. Alright, time to get this light mounted. This is a little stern light that we're talking about. That's the starboard side one, so it's green. Got these little bolts we picked up the other day. The front one's a little bit long, so it has to be because it's a bit thicker. So a simple matter of just putting the nuts and bolts through. Little short ones at the back. And then putting a lock nut on the other end. So what I'll do with the front one as well, because it's got a bit of a funny shape where the plastic is there, I'll put a washer on there. Like that, and then a lock nut so it won't bite into the plastic when I tighten it up. Not sure if I can get a spanner on there, but we can't. Get a pair of pliers onto it. I'll just grab a long nose pliers on the front. So make sure that's all lined up. It's got a grommet behind there, or a gasket I should say. So you don't want to over tighten these. It's only plastic. Should be clean. And same with these. Give a lock nut on these as well. Make sure it's all centered. Lock nut's just working. Could put slightly longer screws on if we wanted to. But I think what will happen is we'll probably end up hitting this clear plastic if I did that. Oh no, we've got plenty of room. I might do that. I might just get a slightly longer screw there so it'll come through the lock nut better. Alright, so we've got nuts and bolts on. And we'll get a clear cover. Sits on like that. It's got a little rubber seal under here as well. Make sure that's on the rubber seal as well without overdoing it. And then we've just got our little cover plate here. And there we have it. It's on there. And what I'll do behind these lights is I'll just get some Sikaflex, and it probably doesn't even need it there, but I'll definitely seal up this one in here. So we're over on the port side now. Just do exactly the same as we did on the other side. Okay, that's done. Alright, so we've got our little spotlight here. I'm going to pull that apart in a minute and put it back together with a heap of Sikaflex or marine grade silicone on it. So I've already wired up the boat with the other half of this waterproof connector. So just a matter of wiring up this side now. With these connectors, first thing you want to do is put the little rubber boots on, because if you forget, it's a real pain when you've soldered everything and then you realise you've got to pull it all apart. So generally only do it once. So anyway, these are little silicone sleeves, grommets, whatever you want to call them, go over the wires. So the way I do these, just strip a bit of wire back off, just enough to solder onto these little tabs. You can connect these, there's no problem doing that. In a boat, I like to solder everything. In fact, pretty much everything I do, I solder it. But anyway, Right, so the solder's flowed in around there. So what you don't want to do with these connectors is fill up all the back in here full of solder, because there's a little quick connect locks in with the plastic housing into there, so you don't want to fill that up whatever you do. Anyway, so that's soldered on there. All I do then is just grab these tabs. They don't really do a great deal, but you need to squash them to get them out of the way so the back of this thing will go on properly. They don't do much at all, these things. So squash them up a bit, do the other one. Sort of round them as you go if you can. Flat them in the middle. That really just holds the insulation a bit, which doesn't really do much. Alright, so the next thing you got to do is thread these through, and if you look inside the plug, it's a bit hard to see, there's a little tab that locks in, snaps them in place, and you can make sure that's in the right spot. And in this case it has to go around that way. And the other thing we need to do is work out the polarity. So this has got number 1 and 2 written on it. Number 1's positive, so these get fed in from the end. Put them around the right way so they lock in. So 1 goes in there like that. But before I do that, I'll make sure I've got the other one ready to go as well. So 2 has to go this way. I'll have them facing away from me. 1 and 2. And you'll hear them snap in when they go in. And then the next thing to do is put this little plastic locking tab in. And that goes around that way. They're a bit fiddly, these things, but they're quite good, quite waterproof once they're in there. Help if I put it around the right way. What that does is lock the pins in as well. So they're all solid in there now. And then what we can do is slide our little boots down, silicone boots. They'll just keep a bit of moisture out of the cable as well. So you can push them right down in there, keep the moisture out, don't stab them too much, you don't want to put a hole in them. But I'm going to put Sikaflex behind this anyway, because I trust that more than these things. Alright, so there you go, that's our connectors in there, little pins sticking out the front there as you can see. All locked in, and that'll go into the, already have the connectors on the boat ready to go. So other thing to do is pull this light apart. You could just mount this the way it is, but they are pretty ordinary as far as the seals go. They'll always get water in there. So I'll just quickly pull them apart and hit them with a bit of Sikaflex and put them back together. Like I said, they're nothing special, these lights. Alright, so we just have to be a bit gentle there. So they've got this bit of a rubber seal on the ends that are pretty ordinary, to be honest. Right, I'll just go and get some Allen keys, take the front off and take the other side out, and then we'll basically all we're doing is putting glue all around the ends, putting it all back together, and that just seals it even better. Right, so we're going to rip this apart. I've found the right hex key for the front. Basically just got like a bit of a clamp that holds a bit of silicone over the glass or plastic or whatever it is. These lights aren't like a spotlight. I mean, they're kind of advertising them as though they are, but they're actually designed to pretty much. I just want it so I can come into a jetty or something at night, or the shack or something down the river, and have it so that I can see what I'm doing basically without having to shine a spotlight around or a light. So again, so they've got this bit of a rubber seal at the ends, which are not brilliant. So how does that work? So that one there has got silicone, like a rubber thing under there. Actually, I might even leave that. Looking at this one's actually pretty good. That's sealed fairly well. So I'll just tighten that back up so it just pushes the glass in. All I'm going to do is seal the ends out. This one. That's probably the best one I've seen so far, which is a bit surprising. So that seal's supposed to seal under there. I reckon half the problem is they still fill all this up with silicone. Anyway, what we'll do is we'll get a new Sikaflex. Punch a hole in it in the end. Cut a tiny bit off the end. Keep it nice and fine, this one. Once you've opened these, if you're not going to use them for a week or so, you can leave them in the fridge and they'll stay a lot fresher. So all I'm going to do with this, making a huge mess hopefully, is to put a bit of silicone all over it. So this will help keep a bit of water out anyway, because once you let the water in, you let the smoke out of the components that are in the electronics, and I think it's the smoke inside that makes them work, because any electronic thing I've ever had, the second you let the smoke out of the electronic components, they just don't work anymore. This is going to get messy as, isn't it? Alright, I'll just put a bit where those seals are. This will never come apart again after this either. Alright, seal the Sikaflex oozing out around there. I'm going to leave that. Seal this other side. So it's a bit messy, but it definitely makes them last a heck of a lot longer. When I say a bit messy, I mean a lot messy. Should easily get 5 years out of this now, like with salt spray over it, all sorts of stuff. Not too worried about what they look like, I just want them to work. And if anyone was paying attention, forgot to put that in. Awesome, now I've got to pull one side off and just quickly slide that nut back in, but that's not a big problem. It's just going to be a mess. So I'll just drop that nut in there. That would have been nice if I had remembered that, but I didn't. But you get that. Messy. Right, I'll clean it up a bit in a minute, but that's the general gist of it. Alright, so that's all sealed up now. We're just going to let that sit tonight, let that dry. Alright, what I've also done while I've had the Sikaflex out, I've just quickly sealed up where the cables come in for the nav lights and the spotlight. Sealed all the plugs. I've actually gone around the edges of where the conduit's been running as well. Put a little bit of Sikaflex under there to hold everything in place, just stop everything moving, and that's pretty much it. So that's it for this video, guys. Yeah, we'll get into it again probably tomorrow. We'll continue on with the wiring. I think we've done the worst of it. I don't have to crawl up underneath the front anymore, so the rest of it should go a lot smoother, hopefully. So, all right, once again, thanks for watching. I'll see you on the next one.